Exposed, the incredible moment a son's wife rejects his mother, leading to a surprising family tension. Jake stood in the cramped dining room, a neatly set table adorned with an extravagant centerpiece, a stark contrast to the tremors rippling through his chest. His heart raced as the shadows of his mother, Carol's expectations loomed large. The weight of her probing gaze felt insurmountable, especially as the clock ticked toward what should have been a night of celebration. Instead, it brimmed with a tension that threatened to consume him whole. As they gathered, Carol prepared her words like ammunition. Jake knew he was walking a tightrope. His mother, concerned with stability, equated to his fiancée, Emily's vibrant artistic pursuits being deemed worthless in her eyes. The anticipation of his wedding brought excitement, yet automatic knots tightened within him. How could he defend the woman he loved against the very mother who made sacrifices for him? "Mom, Emily's art means something to her," Jake interjected, his voice laced with a mixture of frustration and hope. But Carol's face hardened, the battle lines drawn. "Art won't put food on the table, Jake." "That's the reality," she shot back, her words slicing through the atmosphere. Emily's vibrant demeanor dimmed, a flash of hurt quickly masked with resolve, yet the room crackled with an unmistakable clash of ideals. Jake felt torn, the inability to bridge the chasm between these two women who represented parts of his life that felt irreconcilable. What was he supposed to do? He cherished his mother's instincts, rooted in a life of labor and sacrifice, yet a deeper love for Emily urged him to step into a world of feelings over financial promises. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Yet every time he opened his mouth to counter his mother's barrage, a clammy fear seized him, choking out the words. Instead, silence filled the cracks, amplifying the tension. As Carol criticized Emily's choices, another part of Jake's mind slipped into a darker terrain. What if Emily's passion led her to a life devoid of security? Would he be doomed to watch the woman he loved struggle in a world designed for economic survival? Anger simmered beneath the surface, and as Emily began to defend her right to pursue art, the visceral tension escalated, and Jake's heart sank. Here they were, not fighting for him, but against one another. With each passing moment, Jake felt the trim of heart and mind unravel, a fracture forming that could splinter the very core of his existence. As the fight intensified, and words became sharper, he realized the deeper truth. It wasn't simply about art or stability, it was about the shadows of the past dictating their futures. Was he destined to choose sides, or could he carve out a path that honored them both? Just when Jake thought their identities were merging into chaos, the vision of the future he longed for slipped further away. How could he confront his mother while just beginning to understand Emily? His thoughts spiraled into wild uncertainty, knotting tighter than before. Now, standing in the eye of the storm, Jake internalized the ache within. What if both women he loved were destined to lie fractured if he didn't act soon? Would the burden of his mother's fears crush Emily's light forever? As the dinner wound down, he felt a moment of profound clarity. He was adrift between loyalty and love, the weight of expectation pressing down unrelentingly. Just when he thought clarity might emerge, the precarious balance shattered, leaving him questioning if the foundation he stood on could support the emotional upheaval ahead. The dinner finally drew to a close, but Jake's mind raced faster than ever. He could hardly digest the food that lay untouched on his plate, its rich aroma lost amid the turmoil within. While Carol dismissed Emily's art with a practiced disdain, Jake fumed, grappling with the implications. Did he truly have the strength to challenge his mother, or was all this confrontation merely wishful thinking? Emily had retreated into a shell, her spirited laughter stifled, leaving an unsettling silence. He watched her glance towards the door, a silent plea for escape. The thought gnawed at him. He needed to articulate his feelings not just for Emily's sake, but as an assertion of who he was becoming, the man he aspired to be. Was it even possible to forge an identity that embraced the two most important women in his life? As he cleared the table, a surge of frustration propelled him forward. Each piece of cutlery he picked up felt like a weighty decision, a part of his past colliding with the future he envisioned. Emily, he called her name softly, a fragile thread connecting them amidst the wreckage of tension. She turned, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. Yeah? Can we talk? Away from he gestured vaguely at Carol, at the remnants of the evening, swirling around them like a storm in their hearts. She hesitated but nodded. As they stepped into the dimly lit living room, Jake felt the air shift. Suddenly, it wasn't just about arts versus money. Their relationship had morphed into something complex, a battleground of love, dreams, and expectations all laid at his feet. Emily, he began, I love you, and you know it. But I'm struggling to find a way to support you without alienating my mother. Her eyes blazed with hurt. But you aren't choosing me, Jake. You're still trapped in her expectations. You're losing yourself. The truth struck hard. Every word fell like a heavy weight in the room. There it was, the painful reality that he had indeed been allowing his mother's voice to drown out his own. He had been avoiding confrontation, fearing the fallout. But the fear now morphed into urgency. Maybe it starts with me setting boundaries, he murmured, more to himself than to her. I can't keep letting her dictate my choices without fighting back. Emily studied him, eyes narrowing as if seeking to pierce through his resolve. You've got to be honest with her. If you can't stand up for us, then how will we ever stand together? The challenge hung in the air like a tempest. Jake felt the stirrings of determination. It was clear, Emily was not just an artist advocating for herself, she was a mirror, reflecting back the parts of himself that he had buried for far too long. He had tried to play the peacekeeper, but in doing so, he had surrendered his own voice, a tragedy he couldn't afford. Tomorrow, he said suddenly, a newfound sense of clarity firming his stance. I'm going to talk to her. Not just about you, but about me, who I am, what I want for my life. A mixture of hope and uncertainty flickered in Emily's gaze, and Jake felt a glimmer of resolve. This could become the turning point he desperately needed. But a thought haunted him: what if Carol rejected his new stance? Would this confrontation lead to the division he feared the most, or could it pave the way for a resolution? The pit of anticipation in his stomach only deepened. He sighed deeply, acknowledging the abyss that loomed just before him. This is just the beginning, isn't it? She gave a small, tentative smile, the faintest sign of the connection that had been temporarily fractured. Yes, and it's going to be hard. But I believe in you, Jake. As he prepared to face Carol, a question loomed larger than ever. Would the path to asserting his independence reveal the depth of their interconnected lives or deepen the fissures in his world? The morning sun streamed through the window, casting a soft glow over Jake's face as he lay in bed, his thoughts a swirl of determination and doubt. Today was the day he would confront Carol about his identity, about Emily, about who he was becoming. The weight of those intentions hung heavy in the air. It was as if the universe had conspired to amplify the gravity of his task. He dragged himself out of bed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Each step toward the kitchen felt like crossing a battlefield, every sound echoing his uncertainty. As he brewed coffee, he mentally rehearsed the words he would say, feeling the tremor of anxiety rise in his chest. What if he fumbled? What if his mother dismissed him as she had Emily? There was a resoluteness laced through his fear. He couldn't afford to be paralyzed by it. He had tasted anger and frustration during dinner now, the bitterness had transformed into a desire for clarity. He needed to stake his claim, to redefine not just his relationship with Emily, but how he existed within his family. When Carol finally emerged from her room, her habitual morning cheer was as bright as the sun that illuminated their home. "Morning, Jake," she exclaimed, her voice crisp with enthusiasm. "How did you sleep?" "Not great," Jake admitted, feeling the knot in his stomach twist further. "Actually, there is something I need to talk to you about." Carol's smile faltered slightly, perceiving the seriousness in his tone. "Oh. Is everything okay?" It's complicated." He hesitated, his palms clammy against the coffee mug. The dialogue in his head surged, and he forced himself to focus. Can we sit? I think it's important. They settled at the kitchen table, where he took a deep breath, feeling the familiar weight of expectations press upon his shoulders. I've been thinking a lot about my life and relationships lately, especially with Emily. Emily? Carol's brow furrowed. What is going on? I believe in her, Mom. Her art and everything she stands for. It matters to me, he declared, his voice growing steadier. But I've realized that I've been living under your expectations for too long. I need to find my own voice. A tense silence fell between them, thick and suffocating. Carol's expression shifted. The blend of confusion and disbelief made Jake's heart race. Jake, you know how much I care about you both, but you don't understand what's at stake. No, I do understand what's at stake, he challenged, feeling emboldened. I've been living your idea of success. I've tried to balance pleasing you and being with Emily, but it's tearing me apart. I want to forge my own path. Your own path? With her? Carol's tone turned sharp, a defensive edge creeping into her words. You think she can provide for you? You're making a mistake. Disappointment washed over him, but there was something stronger simmering beneath the surface. You're dismissing her again. You're not considering me, my choices, my future. Carol's expression hardened, but deep within her eyes, to Jake's surprise, he detected a flicker of concern. This isn't just about you too. Think about your career, your income, your prospects. You can't seriously consider this. Why do you assume my happiness rests on financial security alone? The frustration boiled over, igniting something within him he had long kept buried. I'm tired of living in your shadow, trying to meet your expectations at the cost of my own happiness. He paused, staring intently into her eyes. He needed her to see him not the son she envisioned, but who he actually was. I can't ignore what I feel for Emily. She deserves someone who believes in her art, and I want to be that person. I want a partner, not just in love but in life. The room was filled with an uneasy silence, as if the very foundations of their relationship had been shaken. Carol's gaze shifted downward, her thoughts processing. What if you're wrong? She finally whispered, the challenge hanging in the air. Jake leaned forward, his voice low but firm. But what if I'm right? The question loomed large. What was the true cost of choosing his own path? As he awaited her response, he felt the tension binding them shift. It was a moment that could either seal their fates apart or begin to dissolve the dividing wall between them. Well, Carol breathed, we may have to redefine what family means. Jake's heart raced at the prospect. He was finally confronting his past, balancing it against a future he longed to forge. What would it mean for him, her, and Emily? What awaited beyond this confrontation? Jake sat in silence as Carol processed the weight of his words. He could sense her grappling with everything that had just unfolded. The air was charged, a blend of tension and unspoken emotions. His heart thudded in his chest, each beat underscoring the enormity of the moment. He had finally revealed a piece of himself, yet the fear of rejection lingered, a shadow on the cusp of hope. What if this didn't lead to understanding? A surge of doubt trickled in as he remembered all their past arguments, each time Carol had dismissed his choices. But today felt different. Today he felt empowered, a strange mixture of anxiety and resolve sparking a newfound confidence in him. Jake, she began cautiously, her voice less authoritative than before, you have to understand that being practical is part of being a responsible adult. I worry that you're chasing something that cannot sustain you. Jake caught the vulnerability in her tone. It was a chink in her armor, a signal that perhaps she was willing to reconsider her stance. Mom, I hear you. But I can't live my life choosing paths based solely on security. Isn't there more to life than financial stability? His voice softened, revealing the layers of his own fear, his desire to explore this raw, unfiltered expression of self. I've watched Emily radiate passion when she talks about her art. That fire, I want that. I want something beyond playing it safe. They locked eyes, and for a brief moment, she was not merely his mother, she was a human being with fears and aspirations. Memories flooded Jake's mind, times when she had sacrificed for her dreams but had shelved them for the sake of providing. "You once had that fire too, didn't you?" he implored. "What did you bury to become the person you are now?" The question hung in the air like an unripe fruit. Jake could see her grappling with it, the internal conflict written across her features. In that moment, he felt a surge of empathy for her struggle. "If I'm to carve my path, I need to respect yours, too. Isn't that what family means?" A flicker of realization passed through Carol's eyes. Perhaps, this was not merely a battle for understanding, but a journey for both of them, a journey that could redefine their relationship. "Maybe my fears were shaping your decisions more than I'd like to admit," she finally admitted, her voice a whisper. "But you need to remember the risks involved. I do care about your happiness. I just fear what could go wrong." Jake took a deep breath, the knot in his stomach loosening slightly. "And so do I. But isn't it a risk worth taking? We owe it to ourselves to explore our possibilities." As the weight of the conversation settled, Jake felt an unfamiliar sense of clarity. He wanted more than just a fleeting moment of resolution. He wanted to ignite a dialogue that could change everything. "What if you supported me, Mom? What if you and I could be brave together? We're both seeking something: depth, authenticity, a meaning beyond what we've settled for." Her response lingered just beyond the horizon of his patience. Would she lean into this? Would she take that step toward acceptance, or retreat to the familiar boundaries they'd created? As the clock ticked loudly in the background, Jake felt the pressure mount. He needed to know. Will you join me in this search for genuine happiness, or will you keep expecting me to walk a path that isn't mine? The future of their relationship teetered on the brink of this very moment. Jake's determined heart raced with anticipation, the outcome uncertain. He was ready to embrace whatever came next, but he needed her to meet him halfway. And then, without warning, the doorbell rang, interrupting their sharing. Uncertainty colored Carol's face anew, but Jake realized that now they would need to face whatever awaited at the door together. What if the arrival was a disruption to their progress? Or could it be the change they both needed? Jake felt the shift in the atmosphere as the doorbell rang, an unseen weight pressing down on both him and Carol. The unanswered questions between them hung like a fragile thread, ready to snap at the slightest provocation. He glanced at her, trying to mask his own apprehension. Whatever was waiting beyond that door could either bridge the gap between them or deepen the divide created by years of misunderstanding. "Should I get it?" he asked, his voice a low murmur. Carol nodded but remained still, as if rooted to the spot. The doorbell sounded again, more insistent this time. With a deep breath, Jake rose, gathering whatever courage he could muster. He wiped his palms on his jeans, preparing himself for whatever conversation lay ahead. As he reached for the doorknob, a flurry of thoughts invaded his mind. Was this the distraction they needed, or would it throw them back into the safety of silence and avoidance? He hesitated, feeling the gravity of the moment sink in. This was not just about an unexpected visitor, it was about choice, about breaking free from a pattern he had been tangled in for years. In essence, it was a test of his newfound resolve. When he opened the door, he found not a stranger but Emily, her infectious smile lighting up her face as she lifted a sketchpad in her hands. "Jake! You have to see this!" she exclaimed, bursting with excitement. A wave of relief washed over him. Despite the weighty conversation with Carol lingering in his mind, seeing Emily's exuberance reminded him of why he craved authenticity. He stepped aside to let her in, grateful she could momentarily draw the attention away from the tension with his mother. "Wow, this looks amazing," he said as he glanced at a beautifully detailed drawing that depicted a vibrant sunset landscape. Emily's eyes sparkled with pride. "I knew you'd like it. I want to enter this in the upcoming art competition," she said breathlessly. Jake could see the fervor behind her ambition, a stark contrast to his mother's cautiousness, which only amplified his own desire to claim a space where passion reigned. As they stepped further into the living room, Jake noticed Carol carefully observing the interaction, her gaze shifting from him to Emily and back again. It was as if she were assessing a new reality, one that was brighter and warmer, yet unfamiliar and perhaps unsettling. "Mom, look at Emily's work," Jake called out, inviting her into their moment. She's really finding her voice through art. Carol approached with hesitance, her studious look softened by a hint of curiosity. "It's beautiful, Emily. You've captured the colors brilliantly. How do you feel about this competition?" Jake's heart raced, fully aware that this was a pivotal moment, an intersection where their conversations about dreams and fears could converge. Would Carol embrace Emily's dreams the way Jake yearned she would embrace his? Emily shrugged playfully. "I'm nervous, but I want to try. It's important for me to put myself out there, just like Jake is trying to do." Jake felt the tension in the air thicken. The convergence of their paths with Emily in the middle was a striking tableau. Carol's expression shifted subtly, a flash of what could almost be called recognition appearing in her eyes. Could pursuing art, against the odds, be a bridge instead of a barrier? But then the moment cracked. The familiar caution in Carol's demeanor seemed to reanimate, her protective instincts rising again. "Just remember, dear, competitions can be tough. You should have a backup plan, just in case," she interjected, her voice laced with concern that echoed his own earlier fears. Reacting instinctively, Jake felt compelled to step in. "Mom, maybe she should decide what's best for her without that safety net. Just like I need to find my own path." The words slipped from his mouth before he could fully understand the weight they carried. The room fell silent, the three of them frozen in a tense standoff. Jake's heart surged, a mix of defiance and determination burgeoning within him. He had spoken up, gone against the customary response, and now he had to stand firm against uncertainty. Jake could feel the gravity of what he had just done. He had chosen not to play it safe. The decision hung thickly in the air as he faced the uncertain flicker in his mother's eyes. Would this moment of truth serve to bind them closer together or further unravel the fabric of their relationship? Outside, the world around them continued uninterrupted, evocatively loud, and vibrant, creating a stark contrast against the silence that now enveloped the room. The door had been opened, the question was whether each of them would step through it. As the moment lingered, he realized he was standing at a precipice not only in the conversation but in his journey. What lay ahead felt daunting yet thrilling, a test for his newfound convictions and for the potential reformation of the family dynamic. Before he could reflect too long, the doorbell rang once more, further appending the tension they all felt. Each ring echoed the question, what would happen next? And in that uncertainty, Jake's new journey stood on the edge, waiting, wanting, and hoping to explore what might lie ahead. The doorbell rang again, breaking the taut silence that had settled heavily in the room. Each chime sent ripples of anxiety through Jake, heightening the sense of urgency that had engulfed them. He glanced at Carol and then at Emily, searching for some reassurance, but neither woman seemed willing or able to provide it. "Should I?" Jake started, but the words faltered in his throat. Was it worth addressing another interruption when the atmosphere was so tentative? He was acutely aware of the delicate balancing act before him, his hopes for a new dynamic with his mother, now unpredictably intertwined with Emily's artistic aspirations. But the door continued to call, bringing another wave of distraction. "Maybe it's just the delivery guy," Emily suggested, attempting to lighten the mood with her easy smile. "Or maybe it's the universe telling us we need to take a step back from this conversation," Carol added, her tone edged with impatience yet betraying an underlying vulnerability. Jake wondered if she felt the same kind of pressure he did, the kind that pushed against an unseen barrier, urging them toward revelations they all hesitated to face. He steeled himself and returned to the door, opening it this time without hesitation. Standing there was Ben, his childhood friend, a welcome contrast to the emotional fog occupying the living room. "Hey man, I was in the area and thought I'd stop by. Everything okay?" he asked, scanning the room. Jake felt a momentary rush of relief wash over him. "Yeah, we were just talking." The word was almost arbitrary in this context. It felt as if they were all teetering on the edge of some uncharted territory. "Right," Ben replied skeptically, clearly sensing the tension. "Why don't you come hang out?" Jake hesitated. Part of him wanted to share his current struggles, to offload the weight onto someone outside their family dynamic. Yet another part craved the opportunity to delve deeper into his confrontation with Carol. Decision-making had never been Jake's strong suit, especially when it involved thorny familial relationships. Give me a sec. He closed the door slowly, his back pressed against it while he took another deep breath. He turned to face Carol and Emily, who were both watching him intently. Maybe I should take this chance to step away, clear my mind? He proposed, hoping to gauge their reactions. I could use some fresh air. That's not what you need right now, Carol interrupted, her voice rising slightly, a tremor betraying her usual steadiness. You should be here, facing this. Despite the defensiveness in her tone, Jake felt her reluctance. She clearly wanted him to engage but was rooted in her own fears about his choices and their implications. This mental tug-of-war left him feeling conflicted. Did he owe it to his mother to stay and continue risking real confrontation? Or was there merit in stepping away, even temporarily, to allow clearer thoughts to come to light? Jake, I think you need to choose what you want, Emily said gently, her perspective refreshing amidst the day's escalating emotions. Her straightforwardness reminded him of how far he had come in his understanding of ambition and risk, yet contrasted sharply with the emotional labyrinth that was his relationship with Carol. Okay, but he found himself scraping the bottom of his thoughts, grasping for something to hold on to. I need to draw a line, Mom. I can't keep walking along your path anymore. The words hung in the air, daring both women to react. Carol's expression flickered, oscillating between surprise, anger, and something akin to fear. It felt like he had ripped the fabric of their conversation wide open. In that moment, Jake realized that he had unveiled more than just his aspirations. He had revealed the cradle of his deep-seated fears, his fear of failure, of losing the love and stability his mother had always provided. He stood there, fully exposed, acknowledging the reality of their interdependence yet clamoring for independence. Perhaps we all need to take a moment outside of this, he finally murmured. Maybe I can talk to Ben and return with a clearer head. As Jake reached for the door again, he felt a swell of determination. He wouldn't merely retreat, he would go armed with newfound insights on his identity and aspirations. Outside, the air felt cleaner, the chaos of internal conflict settling slightly. Ben's presence would offer him a breather, allowing him to articulate what was brewing beneath the surface, his fears, his dreams. Not waiting for a response from the others, he stepped outside, seeking the balm that fresh air could bring. But the moment he closed the door behind him, a new uncertainty crashed over him. Would his return bring resolution, or would it further complicate the path to understanding? The world felt heavier, brighter, and brimming with possibilities, but he had to discover which pathway he was truly ready to walk. The thought lingered in his mind as Jake prepared to navigate the next steps. Choices loomed ahead, and each one threatened to reshape everything he considered comfortable. He wasn't quite sure what he'd find when he returned, but he realized it was time to confront the most elusive parts of himself and perhaps even reforge the connection he had been desperate to rebuild. Time to face it, he whispered under his breath, a reminder to himself. And just then, the faint sounds of laughter drifted from inside, rekindling a sense of hope. What awaited him still felt daunting, but every unanswered question now turned into an opportunity, a chance to face the music and take the leap. With one foot on the threshold of uncertainty, Jake's heart raced as he prepared for the revelations to come. Would he be ready for the truth behind his mother's veil of protection? The journey was just beginning, and its end remained tantalizingly elusive. The sunlight poured down, illuminating the path ahead as Jake walked beside Ben. The laughter from inside faded into a muffled echo, creating a sense of distance that both comforted and unsettled him. He inhaled deeply, letting the fresh air fill his lungs, hoping it would clear the fog in his mind. Dude, what's up? Ben asked, casually tossing his arm around Jake's shoulders as they strolled onward. The camaraderie felt familiar, yet Jake was unaccustomed to this lighter approach to life when the stakes felt so high. I'm just in a weird place, you know? Jake replied, feeling the weight of the unspoken confrontation he'd just left behind. He wrestled with the urge to confide in Ben. Before today, he would have glossed over his true feelings, but now everything seemed necessary to articulate, like every thought had become a thread in the fabric of his current reality. Ben nodded, his expression shifting to one of concern. You mean with your mom? Yeah, Jake confessed, glancing sideways at Ben. It's complicated. I'm trying to assert myself, but I don't want to hurt her. It's all tangled up. Tangled up how? Ben paused, encouraging Jake to lay it out. There was something refreshing about Ben's authenticity. He wouldn't shy away from the hard stuff. Jake halted under the bough of a sturdy oak, its branches swaying slightly in the warm breeze. It's like I've built my whole life around what she wants. I never really thought about what I wanted. But I'm starting to see it. And now I feel this pull to break free, but it's terrifying. Sounds like a classic case of suffocation. Ben leaned against the tree, a gesture that felt both casual and intentional. You've got to figure out who you are without her narrative. But what if I realize that Jake hesitated, grappling with a fear he hadn't yet voiced. What if I don't like what I find? Or worse, what if I do, but it pushes her away for good? Ben straightened, turning to face him. Jake, at some point, you have to prioritize your own happiness. It sounds like you're in this place of awakening, even if it feels uncomfortable. You're not responsible for her happiness, you only owe it to yourself to be genuine. Jake absorbed his words, feeling both lightened and burdened. You're right. But that means I have to confront her. Exactly. Ben encouraged, his energy igniting a flicker of excitement within Jake. These moments can lead to breakthroughs or breakdowns, but they'll be real. People grow through truth, even if the initial confrontation is painful. The gravity of Ben's perspective hit Jake with clarity. He was standing on the brink of something profound, an opportunity to redefine the relationship that had cloaked him in security yet stifled him for years. So how do I do it? Just walk back in and lay it out? Ben shrugged but smiled knowingly. Start with a conversation. You're not attacking her, you're just seeking truth. Frame it in a way that shows you're trying to understand her fears, while gently asserting your own. Jake felt the pulse of determination reverberate through him. This was the crux he needed to communicate, not only about aspirations but about fears. You know, he said, his voice steadying, I think I've been too focused on what I thought she needed to hear. Maybe I need to share what's been bubbling within me, my ambitions, my uncertainty, and my desire for growth. Bingo, Ben said, clapping him on the back. That's the spirit. It'll probably feel like stepping off a cliff, but you'll land somewhere new. You might be surprised how liberating it is to speak your mind. With a renewed sense of purpose, Jake felt his confidence rising. The prospect of returning no longer seemed daunting. It began to morph into an opportunity for connection, the possibility of bridging their emotional divide. Still, as they walked back toward the house, uncertainty loomed over the horizon. What if the truth alienated his mother even further? Would his pursuit of independence be the catalyst for rebuilding their relationship, or would it push them beyond repair? As the door came into view, he hesitated momentarily, surveying the familiar threshold that had once felt secure but now shimmered with tension. He took a breath, his heart throbbing in rhythm with his resolve. Ready? Ben prompted, sensing his moment of hesitation. Jake met his friend's gaze, determination igniting within him. I think I am. It's time to face what's been holding me back. He stepped forward, hand hovering over the doorknob. But just before he could turn it, he paused. A creeping thought flashed through his mind. Perhaps stepping into this new realm of honesty might stir tumultuous feelings he hadn't anticipated, feelings that could upend everything he believed he knew about his family. Whatever happens, I need to be ready for a fight, he murmured, feeling the swell of adrenaline coursing through him. As he turned the knob, he understood, this time was different. He wasn't merely entering a room, he was stepping into a battleground of emotions, ready to reclaim his own narrative. Little did he know, the most challenging battle wasn't with Carol or with Emily, it lay within himself. What parts of Jake did he still have to unpack? And more importantly, what truths would fracture and what would heal in the process? As Jake stepped inside, the familiar scent of lavender cleaning products mingled with the aroma of the evening meal. The once comforting atmosphere felt heavy with expectation. He could hear the muted clatter of dishes in the kitchen and the hum of a television in the background. "Jake?" His mother's voice called out, a note of surprise evident in her tone. It brought back memories of after-school snacks and warm embraces, but today those sentiments felt tangential to the resolve boiling in his chest. "Yeah, Mom. I'm here," he replied, fighting through the small knot of anxiety forming in his stomach. The kitchen door swung open, revealing his mother, an apron tied around her waist, flour dusting her cheek. "Oh, just in time," she said, her smile momentarily pushing away the worry lines etched on her forehead. "I made your favorite chicken and broccoli casserole." Jake returned a careful smile, noting the hope glinting in her eyes. She was still trying to mold this moment into one of connection, but he sensed a deeper tension lurking beneath the surface. "Thanks, Mom. It looks really good." As she turned back toward the kitchen, he could feel the weight of the conversation ahead bearing down on him more heavily than any casserole dish. How could he acknowledge her efforts without folding under the familiar pressure of her expectations? Ben stepped into the room behind him, a silent support with a nod that bolstered Jake's spirit. "Hey, Carol. It looks amazing in here," Ben chimed in, and for a fleeting second, it felt like everything would be just like it had always been, a simple evening shared between loved ones. "Thanks, Ben. I'm glad you're here, too. You keep Jake grounded," she said, her eyes shimmering with appreciation. Jake used those words, grounded, as the foundation for his resolve. Grounded was comfortable, but it didn't allow for growth. He took a deep breath, reminding himself that Ben was right. He had to seek truth, even if it turned out messy. "Mom, can we talk?" he said, interrupting her. The sudden seriousness in his voice flushed the warmth from her smile. "Sure, honey. Is something wrong?" "No, nothing's wrong," he replied, choosing his words carefully. "I just feel like I need to share something that's been on my mind." He watched as a flicker of apprehension danced across her face. She wiped her hands on the apron, wanting to be ready for whatever might come next. "Of course. Is there somewhere you'd like to sit?" "No, let us do it here. I want to be up front." He could feel his heart racing as he prepared to unravel years of complacency. "Okay," she positioned herself, folding her arms while leaning against the counter, creating an oasis of expectation. "I've been thinking a lot about my life, my choices, and honestly I feel I've lived them for you instead of for myself." The admission hung in the air, an audacious leap into unfamiliar territory. "What do you mean?" Her voice held an edge of disbelief, mixed with concern. "I mean," Jake continued, pressing on, "I've done everything to please you, to fit into the role I thought was expected of me. I've not considered what I actually want. It scares me to think about stepping outside that comfort zone, but I need to figure out who I am, even if it means making decisions that aren't what you prefer." He focused intently on her eyes, searching for signs of understanding. Instead, he saw flashes of hurt and confusion, her emotional armor rising to shield the vulnerable parts he was threatening to confront. "Jake, I've only ever wanted what's best for you. Why would you want to push me away?" The question pierced through him, wrangling its way into his heart. "I don't want to push you away, Mom. In fact, I hope this brings us closer. But I need to ask you to trust me to discover my own path. Can't we redefine our relationship?" She hesitated, her brow furrowed, weighing her response. It was a delicate dance between love and the fear of loss. He pressed on, anchoring his emotions. "I need to be honest about my career aspirations, my dreams, and my struggles without feeling like I'm going against you. But I can't do that if I'm always worried about hurting you." The silence that followed felt like an eternity, charged with all the emotions they had yet to unpack. He wondered if exposing this vulnerable truth would bridge their divide or deepen it. Then, with a shaky breath, she finally spoke. "You're right that I've tried to steer you, but I didn't realize how much that might have suffocated you. But everyone is scared of change, Jake, not just you." "I know, but I'm more terrified of staying just the same." As her walls began to crumble, Jake felt a swell of hope. He was challenging not only his own fears but hers, to a process that felt both liberating and fraught with uncertainty. What would come of this conversation? Would they find common ground, or would the revelation send them into a deeper emotional spiral? As that question lingered hoveringly between them, Jake braced for the next move, knowing that perhaps this was only the beginning of a tumultuous journey toward understanding. But what he didn't realize was that the hardest truths for both of them were still hovering in the shadows, waiting to be confronted. The tension in the room crackled, shifting like static electricity as Jake's words settled heavily around them. His mother's eyes reflected a deep vulnerability that made his heart race not with fear, but with a burgeoning conviction born from his recent realizations. This wasn't just his moment, it was theirs, a shared confrontation that could shape the future. "Change isn't just uncomfortable for me," he said, his voice steadying into something more resolute. "I know it's daunting for you too. But if we can speak openly about our fears, it can strengthen what we still might build together." For a moment, she searched his face as if looking for something familiar, something anchoring. "I just don't want to lose you in the process, Jake. You mean the world to me." Her admission struck him deeper than he anticipated. The weight of her affection pressed on him, mingling with the understanding that this was the crux of their shared struggle, love versus identity. "I get that, Mom. But I need to be honest. I've been hiding parts of myself to keep you comfortable. And believe me, it's exhausting." He contemplated the road ahead filled with uncertainty, wondering if certain sacrifices had to be made to really grow. "What if I told you I'm thinking about pursuing a career that doesn't align with what you envision for me? Would you still support me?" Her expression tightened, a mixture of disbelief and fear creeping back into her voice. "Are you talking about art again? You know how I feel about that. It's not a secure future, Jake." Her reaction ignited his frustration. "That's exactly the point, Mom. It never was about security for me. It was about passion. If I'm going to invest my life into something, I want it to be something I love. Not something that looks good on paper." Each word poured out with an intensity he had suppressed for too long. The challenge in his voice hung palpably in the air, and her response was delayed. The silence stretched agonizingly, and Jake began to question if perhaps he had pushed too hard. But he insisted on holding his ground. "I want to be someone you can be proud of, but I need your trust that I can take the risks necessary to find that person." Finally, his mother's defenses loosened ever so slightly. "It just feels like you're closing doors instead of exploring them. What if you decide art isn't for you? What happens then? You're asking me to consider only failure instead of potential. Mom, what if I thrive? What if I discover talents I never knew I had?" He leaned closer, searching for connection in her eyes. "Doesn't part of you want to see me succeed in being authentically myself?" Her reaction was layered, layers of fear wrapping around hints of pride and hope. "I want to see you happy, Jake," she murmured, a flicker of acceptance igniting her eyes, "but the world is difficult. The risks might outweigh the rewards." "Maybe, but if I don't take them, I'll be stuck doing what, living your life?" Saying those words jolted his resolve. Each syllable felt liberating, breaking chains he didn't fully see until now. "Jake, I've always wanted what's best for you, but you have to understand stepping into unknown territory is terrifying for me too," she said, her tone softening. "If you fail, it feels like I've failed. Maybe I've taught you to take fewer risks because that's how I've survived." The realization hit him then, this wasn't solely about him pursuing art. This was about a generational struggle with fear of disappointment, fear of failure, and of feeling lost. "Then let us work through it together." "You and me," he replied, emotional liberation stirring within him. "Start with trust, Mom. Trust that I'll find my way, even if it takes time and mistakes." As he caught a glimpse of a smile breaking through, the heaviness morphed into something softer, filled with possibility. Maybe change could ripple through both of them, if only they could allow it to. But as the moment of connection began to settle, an unexpected knock echoed through the kitchen, shattering the fragile intimacy they created. That sound awakened a storm Jake hadn't prepared for, and as he exchanged glances with his mother, he felt the foundations shift beneath them. What if the unexpected visitor opened another layer of their already strained reality? Would it challenge everything they had just unearthed? As the knock resonated through the kitchen, Jake's heart raced with anxiety. Who could it be? The dynamics they had just begun to untangle felt fragile, and he feared that any disruption might dismantle the fragile thread of understanding he had started to weave with Carol. He cast a quick nervous glance at her. Her eyes mirrored his worry but held a glimmer of resilience. "I'll get it," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. With slow, measured steps, he approached the door. Each step echoed the tension still crackling in the room, a reminder of the pivotal conversation that hung suspended in the air behind him. When he opened the door, he was met not by a stranger, but by his older brother, Matt, a sturdy figure illuminated by the afternoon sun. "Hey, little bro," he boomed, his usual exuberance almost too overwhelming after the heavy air inside. Jake's apprehension shifted to curiosity. "What were you doing here?" "I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd stop by." "You busy?" Jake hesitated, glancing back inside where Carol stood by the counter, uncertainty etched across her face. Kind of," he muttered, debating whether it was worth diverting the conversation they had just begun. Before he could process it, Matt stepped inside, a confident presence that pushed the boundaries of their sensitive exchange. "Mom. I hope you've saved me some of that casserole." The warmth in Carol's smile was instantaneous, and for a brief moment, tension was replaced with familial ease. "Always for you, sweetheart," she said, instinctually reverting to a nurturing role. Jake stood frozen, the gravity of the earlier confrontation still anchoring him, yet now disrupted by this unexpected visit. There was something jarring about Matt's arrival, a reminder that not all questions had been asked nor addressed. While the atmosphere within the room lightened, Jake felt the threads of his own resolve begin to fray. "What were you guys talking about?" Matt asked casually, eyeing the loaded plates and the silence that still enveloped them. "Just catching up," Carol said, a touch of something protective lurking in her tone. Jake felt compelled to seize this moment. "Actually, Matt, we were discussing what I want for my future. It hasn't been easy, and I just opened up about pursuing art." Matt's eyebrows shot up, surprise evident on his face. "Art? Huh. That's cool, bro. A bit risky, but cool." Jake's heart surged, a mix of pride and fear flipping inside him. "I know it's risky, but risk is what living is all about," Matt interjected, subtly deflecting the weight of the prior conversation. "Look at me. I took the plunge, moved away, started my music career in LA. Wasn't easy, but hey, I'm happy." Matt's nonchalant attitude struck a note of discord in the air. While he felt invigorated by his brother's encouragement, he also sensed Carol hardening again, her protective instincts rising. "That's wonderful, Matt, but it's not the same thing," she replied, shaking her head gently. "Jake is still figuring things out." A wave of frustration washed over Jake. "Mom, that's exactly the issue. I need the freedom to explore what I want, just like Matt did." Carol opened her mouth to respond, but Matt quickly intervened, raising a hand. No, let him talk," he urged, unaware of the delicate threads he was treading upon. "Open up, Jake. What do you really want?" The question hung heavily in the air, the depth of it sliced through Jake like a sharp blade. He took a deep breath. "I want to embrace my passion for art, but I also want your support, Mom. Without it, this journey feels impossible." Matt's gaze shifted between Jake and Carol, recognizing the tug-of-war. "You're his mother, Carol. Shouldn't you want him to find his happiness?" As the words sunk in, a profound silence enveloped the kitchen again. Jake felt the weight of his brother's statement fuse with the earlier vulnerability he had reached with Carol. This moment felt charged with potential, but it also threatened to spiral out of control. Finally, Carol sighed deeply, tension radiating off her shoulders. I just worry, that's all. I've seen too many people chase dreams only to fall back on safety nets. But what if falling becomes flying?" Jake interjected, hoping to ground the conversation in understanding rather than fear. "I'm ready to risk it." Isn't that part of the journey? Around them, the space felt alive, pulsing with the unresolved tangles of emotions. Matt's supportive energy mixed with Jake's convictions were meant to bridge the chasm, yet Carol's reticence loomed, a storm cloud ready to unleash. Seeing her distress, Jake softened, approaching her with raw honesty. "Mom, if I fail, I want to know that I did it on my own terms. I need to breathe and find my own path, even if that means grappling with fears for both of us." Watching her carefully, he searched for the flicker of understanding he had seen earlier, hoping she could see the truth in his eyes. "If risking failure is what it takes to embrace who I am, I'd rather take that leap than remain confined to expectations that don't belong to me." In that moment, her frozen demeanor began to thaw, a ripple of acceptance emerging in the depths of her gaze. "I just don't want to see you hurt. It frightens me," she murmured, a tremor in her voice. Jake felt the realization wash over him as a powerful wave of empathy surged forth, the tension of years thick with love, vulnerability, and fears bound together. "I understand. But you need to trust that this fear doesn't define me. It fuels me." As the weight of his words settled around them, Jake took the plunge, feeling the fragility of this moment transform the atmosphere. "Let us redefine what it means to support one another. I'm still your son, I'm just becoming more of myself." In a defining shift, Jake saw his mother take a deep, steadying breath, the resolution at her core reforming. "Okay," she said softly, "I will try to support you." The acknowledgement left Jake stunned, hope rippling through his being. Just then, the atmosphere shifted once more. It was as if time slowed, elongating each heartbeat as the dynamic within the kitchen filled with possibility. All three stood poised at the crossroads of change, not quite aware of where the narrative would lead them but united in the endeavor to reclaim their stories. Jake felt renewed strength blossom within him, illuminating the path forward. They weren't just shifting their relationship. They were embarking on a collective journey of discovery, respect, and trust that extended beyond the walls of the kitchen, redefining their familial bonds for good. Matt broke the moment, clapping Jake on the shoulder. "I'll always have your back, bro. You've got this." "I know," Jake replied, warmth flooding him. "I'll always have yours, too." With the echo of their words hanging in the air, Jake realized the unpredictable beauty of vulnerability, its power to transition dread into acceptance and fear into courage. Together, they stepped towards a new horizon, aware of the challenges ahead but ready to confront them, fortified by love, understanding, and an unspoken commitment to honor one another's journeys. And at that moment, Jake not only found his voice among the chaos but also unearthed a blend of inner strength, independence, and familial warmth that would carry him forward. The warmth of hope illuminated an uncertain yet exhilarating pathway that awaited them, and they stood united in the promise of newfound beginnings. This was just the beginning. Now, if you want to witness more powerful transformations, subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover this journey of personal growth. Comment below with your reactions and theories about how relationships can evolve through confrontation and understanding. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting each other through love and growth.